Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, a number of very important topics. How about assistance for students at our public universities? And then mail-in ballots, a court decision, and Josh Shapiro's first year in office and evaluation. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
All right, much to do in the program. Let's get started. Joining me are a couple of reporters. Tom Lehman, he's the Capitol reporter with WGAL News 8, and Charlie Thompson with the Harrisburg Patriot News Penn Live. All right, Charlie, I'm going to start with you. A court decision. Mail-in ballots. A lot of Pennsylvanians vote by mail, and there was a court decision that has an effect on it. Charlie, explain that.
Yeah. Yesterday we had a ruling from a federal district judge in western Pennsylvania who basically ruled that under the Federal Voting Rights Act, provisions in Pennsylvania's law that say don't count this mail-in ballot if you didn't date it
correctly
on the return envelope.
Yeah.
The provision in our law that prohibits those ballots from being counted can't stand, and the ballots have to be counted as long as they check all the other boxes. And it's kind of the judge ruled that it was not material to the act of voting to date that ballot, and I think. Obviously, it's self-evident if election officials have the ballots in hand, we know they got. Then we know that they got cast in time. So it's an interesting little kind of fight on the margins of whether mail-in balloting should continue or not.
Tom, let me go. I mean, that only seems to make sense to me. You have to sign it. The decision had nothing to do with your signature, but just the date. But it's there. It's in the hands of the election officials in the districts.
Right, and that was one of the big points of contention when we saw legal action here in Pennsylvania between Dave McCormick and Mehmet Oz during their 2022 U.S. Senate primary on the GOP side, because there were a lot of ballots out there that had issues with the dates. And Dave McCormick was trying to make sure that those got counted. But the bottom line is that argument, that issue of, well, hey, the county got it in the mail by 8 p.m. on Election Day. That's really the deciding factor. I'm an eligible voter. That's what the district judge said is really the deciding factor here. Are you an eligible voter? And did the County Board of Election get the ballot on time?
Yeah, and it's just one of those issues that shows you how much of a tight wire act our politics is these days, because every party is looking for an edge. And this was a small defeat for Republicans, a small victory for Democrats, who generally cast most of the mail-in ballots.
More mail-in ballots than Republicans.
In Philadelphia in 2022, they had 381,000 mail-in ballots cast. Only about 2% of them were held up because of no date. But so that we're talking about mail-in ballots maybe take about 25 to 30% of the overall electorate now. You got 2% of that. So it's only a small slice of all the ballots cast. But in a race like a 2024 presidential election, where Pennsylvania could loom large as a swing state, everybody's looking for an edge.
But mail-in ballots are here to stay. I mean, there's no real effort in the legislature. And
I think we have reached the point where, we know that Republicans are trying to encourage more Republicans to do it. And I think people are going to stop fighting now and start to...
All right. Well, I want to run to a break, but before I do that, I just want to mention this, Tom Lehman, when we come back from the break, you'll go in. Governor Shapiro, about, 1 year in office now?
We're getting there, yeah.
Getting there. He's close to it. And, he's been involved. I've never, he's a bit like Ed Rendell in the sense that he's here, there, and everywhere. And we'll get to an evaluation of him. But Does anybody travel more in this state than Josh Shapiro?
He certainly seems to be putting in the miles. You know, you get the little advisories from his press office telling you where he's going to be, and he's hitting every corner of the state. He's hitting a lot of different locations. It's just, it's interesting to see.
Yeah. All right, let's go. After the break, we'll take up Governor Josh Shapiro's first year in office.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, Josh Shapiro closing in on his first year as governor. I'll tell you, he is here, there, and everywhere, as I mentioned. He is a bit like Ed Rendell. Ed Rendell never sat in his office for more than 5 minutes, I think. He and Arlen Specter, Senator Specter, traveled all over the state, quite frequently. Charlie smiling, he's covered both of them. Just insanely so. I'm joking about that, but oh my. All right, Governor Shapiro's first year.
Yeah, Governor Shapiro made an appearance this week at the PA Press Club and talked about his first year in office. It's sort of a tradition that the governor makes an appearance toward the end of that time period. Spent a lot of the afternoon talking about some of the things that he's been up to during that first year, mostly focusing on a lot of stuff that his administration has handled, sort of like the I-95 collapse.
Yeah, big deal.
Yeah, and also a lot of the executive decisions he's made, among those the DMV automatic voter registration program. One thing he didn't touch on a lot during his prepared remarks, though, was the stuff that hasn't gotten done because they need legislative approval. And some of the dysfunction, frankly, that is still going on.
And a divided legislature. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he pointed that out, too. He also said, listen, I've got a situation nobody else has to work with. If we want to get anything done, we've got to get House Democrats as well as Senate Republicans to agree on it, and they've got to get something that I agree on to my desk.
Yeah. Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't at the press club, but I have seen reports on it, and obviously it should come as no surprise that in Governor Shapiro's self-evaluation, he gives himself high marks, right? But,
don't all governors?
Yeah, but there were questions about other things that the governor didn't necessarily present on his own. Like, for example, the Senate Republicans' fury about him walking back what they thought was a deal on tuition vouchers, the Mike Vereb departure in the wake of a sexual harassment
staff
claim.
member.
Yeah, and how the Shapiro administration handled that, which was as keep it as quiet as possible for as long as possible and pay a settlement. Shapiro's line on that has been that, look, the way things are now, it's a personnel matter, and I can't really talk about it. He says that he will support acts that would allow more transparency in future cases where a state official is hit with a sexual harassment type of settlement.
Has there been, either one of you, has there been any programs that he's proposed that are substantial that hasn't moved in the legislature that any of you can think about?
Well, I think certainly, and this speaks to sort of the dysfunction, if you will, right now, right in the legislature, things that came right out of his budget address. And I'll go with one in particular that's been a topic lately, the 911 service funding, the surcharge that you pay on your phone bill every month. Shapiro said he wants to see it higher, closer to $2, I believe. And right now it's sitting, I believe, down at $1.65, right around there. But the point of the matter is that he's proposed raising it. House Democrats have supported that, also had their own opinions about it. But over in the Senate Republican caucus, they recently moved to get rid of the raise that he wants. And not only that, Terry, but there's an upcoming deadline in January to get all this done. So I think that is just an example of where Shapiro doesn't hold all the cards.
Minimum wage.
Yeah, well, minimum wage is kind of a perennial.
$7.25 an hour. Do I got that right?
Right. And meanwhile, much of the economy has moved way past that. I'm sure that every major fast food chain out there pays their starting employee more than $7.25 an hour now. Yeah. Sheetz does, Turkey Hill does. You think of your favorite, So
where I go to get my gas.
it's still a great political talking point, but as a practical matter,
Is it going anywhere?
Going anywhere, minimum wage?
In the legislature, obviously.
I think we'll have to see. I think there's still a lot of discussion on these issues and other priorities that Shapiro's outlined. But, remember, we're heading into the second year of a General Assembly, and that's when the deals are going to get cut, because you got to get something passed by the end of the year.
All right, thanks for the update. All right, we're going to talk about public higher education and assistance for students. We'll get to that soon.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by
Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
All right, welcome back. Well, joining me is Dr. Ken Mash. He's the president of the Association of the Pennsylvania College and University Faculties, otherwise known as APSCUF. In all fairness and truthfulness, I once held his position, decades ago. And I'm also a senior fellow at Millersville University, one of the public universities we're going to talk about. All right, 85,000 students spread out through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, correct?
That's absolutely right. We are the most affordable option in Pennsylvania. We serve primarily the working class. It's actually a good thing to work for, to help people, with their upward mobility and really. And
it used to be a lot of students who were the first in their family to attend to go to a higher ed school, to attend higher education. Not so, I imagine now, probably more second.
No, that's actually still the case. We have lots of students. They are first generation college students.
Wow.
They are, it gets corny. Maybe it sounds corny, but they really are trying to play out the American dream and do better than their parents did.
All right, let's turn to a very important substantive issue, and that has to do with assistance for students in a program called the PA Promise, and you've also added pilot program, or maybe somebody else did, PA Promise Pilot Program. What is it and why is it important?
So this is a project that APSCUF sort of pushed starting 7 years ago, which would make Pennsylvania join like 30 other states and have a Promise program, which would, pay for college for students for the first 2 years. So if you, under this pilot program, if your family makes under $200,000, you would have an opportunity to attend a community college for 2 years. You would have an opportunity to attend a state system university, one of our universities, for 2 years, or you would have the opportunity to go to a state-related university and use...
That's University of Pittsburgh, University of Pennsylvania, Lincoln, and...
Temple and Penn State, not Penn.
Penn State, go ahead.
So, but that would be like you would get the money that it would cost to go to a state system school. You could use it towards that. And, we also, in the bill, there's money for students, adult learners who want to continue along. There's also, if your family makes under $60,000, there's money for room and board. And this is a last dollar scholarship, so it means that the state would cover the difference between what you would get in federal financial aid and other forms of financial aid. They would pay for the difference. And you said, yeah, it's a pilot program that was, kind of pushed by the legislators because they were thinking, hey, let's do this for 1 year. Let's see how it goes. Because previously, when we had recommended it, we would make it a permanent program. Yeah. But they want to, feel it out, see how expensive it would be overall.
All right. So where is it in terms of the legislative process? In the Senate?
Yeah.
Is the proposal in the Senate?
Yeah, not quite in the Senate yet. So,
yet, okay.
Yeah. So bear in mind, I'm a political scientist, so I appreciate the fact that when you're trying to get a big piece of legislation through, you don't have any expectation that it's going to happen in the first year. So I said it's taken 7 years along the way, but you're trying to find progress. And the progress that we see, there's a sponsorship memo that was put out by Senator Hughes, Representative Chairman Harris in the Pennsylvania House has put forth a sponsorship memo. We're really excited about the fact that the House Education Committee is likely to take it up. So that's.
But you sound optimistic that this bill, that when it becomes a bill, it will pass.
We're optimistic that that it will get its day at least. Like I said, for progress, we're hoping that the House will take action, pass it, and it'll get to the Senate. And then we could start working for it. What I'm equally excited about is this time around, we've really looked for more breadth for supporters, and we're finding a lot of support amongst business leaders, community leaders, others, because they understand the importance.
All right, well, we're going to run to a break. When we get back, I have another question I want to ask, and then we're going to get on to what else, money for the state system, the budget. We'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, we're going to continue for a couple of minutes on the Pennsylvania Promise pilot program before we go on to other things. Okay, this is extremely important, but it's not new. It's been done in many other states, correct?
Yeah, there's 30 other states that have similar kinds of programs. Some are more limited, some are more expansive. New York has been doing this for a while, and in fact, they have made it available for out-of-state students. So we actually have Pennsylvanians going to college in New York and staying in New York. And I think that gets to a bigger point about why this is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, and the whole point of this is to make college available for students, for individuals, which might not have been possible without this assistance. Is that the whole point?
Yeah. So the whole point is, it's not the whole point because yes, we want to try and draw more students in who otherwise wouldn't even think about going to college. We want them to fill out their financial aid forms because filling out those financial aid forms would mean that they could go to college. Yeah. It's important for us too, the Commonwealth too, and I think that there is bipartisan recognition of this, that we are going to be in a position when it comes to having good jobs in Pennsylvania that we're going to need a highly educated workforce. And so we have to do the kinds of things that are going to be attractive for our students to stay in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So we need to encourage more people to go to college. We need Pennsylvanians, to take the opportunity.
And these universities, and again, I'm partial here because of what I do, but they're in many small communities throughout the state, which need the workers. Literally, you don't have to travel 300 miles to find a job, correct?
No, it's a great opportunity for us if students would go and we start to see the enrollments go up because, as you said, if you look at a place like Clarion, Pennsylvania, or Slippery Rock, or some of the communities that these universities are in, they could really use for the universities to really be successful. I also wanted to add, as far as the expense of college, what it costs. And the amount of money that students have to carry in student loans.
That's a good point.
To even go to one of our universities, which is now really truly, since we have not raised tuition in 5 years, the cheapest option in Pennsylvania. Yeah. But, I think also we are seeing the effects of the fact that people are graduating
and
with
you've
big
been
student loans.
Before I let you go, you've been funded by the state legislature. That's been done?
Yes, we already have been funded. We got a 6% increase. We got some money for Penn West University to pay for some legacy debt that's been a long time ago. And, and again, just to say it again, we have not raised tuition. The Board of Governors hasn't for 5 years. And so I
want you to repeat that. No tuition hike in how long?
5 years. So that's
remarkable.
That is unheard of when you're talking about higher education, and that is, and I want to give credit where credit is due. It's because of what the board has done. It's also because of the support that we have had from the Pennsylvania legislature, the governors, Governor Wolf, and now Governor Shapiro, too.
Well, this year, of course, there was a surplus in the budget when the legislature and the governor got down to business.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, it was good that they did that. We're looking for more support, of course, next year, maybe to increase our record of no tuition increases, too. The goal, I know, is to keep it as affordable
and
as
a good bit of money has gone into facilities. Many of these campuses, have been around a long time. The facilities need repair or replaced, correct?
Well, because those are separate budget lines, I think our universities have done a pretty good job of maintaining modern campuses that are attractive and that students enjoy being at.
Yeah, and that's certainly not easy. Funding in the future, are you optimistic that the legislature will continue to support?
I am optimistic because I think that they recognize that that the cost of higher education has gone up and up. They see what the Board of Governors has done as far as freezing tuition. So we're looking for this support for our universities as institutions, and of course we want the Pennsylvania Prom.
Well, I'd like you to keep coming in and keep us posted. Again, 85,000 students spread out across the entire state of Pennsylvania. It's an important part of the economy of the state, and we appreciate your willingness to come on the program.
Thank you, Terry. Anytime.
All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.